You're not playing guitar.
Numero uno. No, I'm not playing guitar.
Oh, you're not going to play guitar?
No.
Okay.
I will listen for the intro music when you're ready.
Well, we already started though.
Is it live?
Yeah.
Oh, we're live right now?
Yeah, I wanted you were playing the guitar and I thought it'd be nice to start with some live music.
Oh, like
There you go.
that?
Yes. You're supposed to put some
Okay.
words to it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I've got words to that. But before we go there, I think we need to address the real issues, why we're here, what we're doing.
Before we do the intro.
Before we do the intro, like
Okay, all right. All right.
addressing like this massive, massive problem that I continue to encounter
Okay.
in every arena and everywhere I go.
Is it foot odor?
Mm, that's that is absolutely probably part of the equation, even though I'm not aware of it.
I an
But
underlying foot
no,
odor issue.
yeah, no. The massive, massive problem that I'm talking about is the inability to have a conversation with anybody.
Yeah.
I'm beyond perplexed. I'm beyond perplexed about it. It's gotten to a point where, to be quite honest, I mean, I feel like I could pull back the curtain, right? I could like just rip the freaking curtain down on people and tell them, hey, this is the way it is.
Uh-huh.
Um, but but I'm not going to. I'm not going to. I'm going to wait and I'm going to listen to your opinion on that before I do anything and decide what I'm going to do. Because I know that you've been in a very similar situation throughout the years and you've encountered many of the same kind of things. And I want to know what your thoughts are. I want to know why you think it's such a task, such a, I mean, it's so hard to have a conversation with anybody, Jeff. Anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Straight across the board.
Mm-hmm.
I'm confused by it, to be quite honest. 'Cause I don't know, take for example the post that was recently presented by one of our friends, and I consider him a friend. But
Um,
think about that post that was recently presented. And, here's somebody that puts out something and says, hey, here's what I think. And I'm going to post an article, but I'm going to give some commentary. And then when somebody presents something that kind of challenges that narrative, they all of a sudden freak out, go negative, and the problem is here's the thing. Here's the where I'm at this point, right? And how I approach those conversations with that individual and many people at this point. There's a context behind that. That doesn't just happen. I didn't just, as they say, fall off the turnip truck, right? Right, Jeff?
as in people in general when they say things.
People in general when they say things, right?
or
So,
this specific
but
person?
no, 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 just in general. But we're what what's triggered, if you want to use that word, what's triggered this is that post and that situation particularly because it happens all too often, too
So
much
a few things.
as far as I'm
One,
concerned. And let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. That individual knows who I am and should know who I am very, very well based on all the interactions, all the things that I've come across with that person, all the things that that person has personally witnessed me go through in these kind of conversations. I'm a little confused, to be honest. I'm a little
not
confused. Why, even in that situation, Jeff, it's so difficult just to have a conversation. I need you. I think I need you because I think you've been articulate in many, many ways and instrumental in many ways in helping me understand a couple things. So I'm going to put this little gem in your hands and I'm going to say, Jeff,
uh,
what do you think? Help me make sense of this ridiculousness,
all right.
this continuous inability to have a conversation with somebody on a very basic level to the point where I have to do those kind of things to get any kind of attention. Because even if I ask questions in a nice way, in a very fluffy way, in a very diplomatic way, that wouldn't get a response. I've done that. I've gone there. And not only have I gone there, not only have I done that, not only have I tried that approach, I have it documented. I have it documented for years and years and years and years, showing that you can be a civil, you can be kind, you can use nice words, and you're going to still run into the same kind of BS, which I'm confused about. So I'm going to ask you, Jeff, to help me and explain that to me. I don't get it. Just don't get it. But maybe you do. And I have a strange, strange feeling that you probably sympathize with the other side of this.
The other side? Well, there's a few things. One, you were breaking up a little bit earlier. Two, I don't know all the details, but it's okay.
Did I break up in the critical parts of my conversation?
At the very beginning, but I think I can piece everything together. The very beginning, I don't know the actual specific context of this, but that's important to go over anyways. I actually only saw that you were interacting on Facebook. I actually didn't read the posted article. I didn't read a lot of the exchange. I just saw that you were interacting. So, would you briefly summarize, without the specifics, just like what are you talking about right now? Somebody posted something about gender roles, I think,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you made some comments about it, and you're focused on this interaction and the inability to have a conversation with somebody. So, what happened? Did the person say, "I'm done talking to you," or what do you mean? What was the negative result of this conversation so that I can understand and our thousands of listeners can understand?
So, thousands? You mean
Oh, I'm sorry. I was off by 1,000. I mean zero.
no, 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 no. You mean millions? Is that what you mean?
If you count the millions of molecules within one person, maybe.
And when we say millions these days, we're not talking about like 1, 2 million. We're talking about millions, millions,
Uh,
like
uh,
hundreds of millions.
well, let's not get off task. So,
Okay,
So
so no,
what
listen,
happened? What happened
listen.
so that I can understand and my and our all of
Yes.
our listeners can understand? Because I don't know,
Yes.
I don't actually know what happened. Nobody
Well,
knows what happened at this point, Ron.
yeah, no, no, and I'm glad you asked, and I was expecting you to ask, so that we could put in who the frick is
I think that's Cookie Monster.
putting who's opening a pack of soft chew chocolate chip cookies right now in the
Really
middle of
good.
a conversation.
You're really good. They're semi-sweet chocolate morsels. I
I
might whip
mean,
up the cookies
who
during the
the
conversation.
who the frick is opening cookies right now during this very important conversation? That's what I
No,
want to know.
I'm hunkering down. I don't want to get low blood sugar during the conversation. I need to
Hey,
focus.
snack all you want. I'll probably eat some chicken wings during this thing. But the fact is, while I am talking, while I'm talking, I expect to only hear me talking, right, Jeff?
You are sassy tonight.
Wow.
Right, Jeff?
Something got his goat, that's for sure.
All right, but can you give us a
Oh,
summary? Because I don't know what happened. Just tell us what happened. I want to know the summary,
well,
not all the details. Just what happened.
yeah.
Were you
So,
cut off? Were you
so
told you're
we,
not invited to a birthday party? What happened?
so we have this friend that's actually been on the show, and he posts a post, and in this on Facebook, and in the post, he references a couple different things. I'm gonna give you a brief summary of what the article was about. And your article is about a child, and essentially this child gravitates towards and um, likes we'll call it more feminine. He gravitates more feminine interests. So he paints his nails and plays with dolls and blah blah blah. And this individual, this person, says, "Yes, I've done the same thing," and essentially posts this article that essentially tries to say that we as a society are guilty of this toxic masculinity.
Uh-huh.
And that's the bottom line, that there's this toxic masculinity that just is pervasive in society, and there's this problem. And that's a little over that now when I say it that way, that's a little over exaggerated than how he actually said it. But he did say that. And here's but the I think puts some emotion behind what he's actually presenting, because this individual doesn't present a whole lot of things. It's not like he's going out there oftentimes and saying, you know what, this is what I'm really passionate about, or this is what I'm really passionate about. Once in a great while, he'll post a couple things, and it's mostly currency kind of issues, and progressive currency issues and alternatives to printed money, and now um, electronic currencies. I'll call it electronic currencies like Bitcoin, things like that. So he has a lot of interest in those things, which he has quite honestly, provided some interesting information, and at times has this ability to, have a conversation once in a while. But he posts this article, and says, I'm gonna quote you what he actually said. Okay, is that okay?
Well,
I'm gonna quote you what I actually was questioning. Okay, and this was the thing. This is the thing out of his post. This was the thing that became most interesting to me. Okay,
mhm.
tell me when you're ready.
I was ready
Okay,
when you walked in the door, Ron.
all right.
I'm not going to
So
wrinkle my chocolate chip cookie bag at all.
here, you know what? Here, I'm actually going to read. I'm actually gonna. Here's what I came across. So
Uh,
I'm on Facebook.
this is such a good show. I just got to say.
Yeah, I'm
I
on
mean, I don't know why
Facebook.
we don't have thousands of listeners. I just can't figure it out.
No, I
Well,
think it's something with the bots algorithms where it looks like 8, but it's
Oh,
8,000.
our last show got one.
That
I
was
don't
me.
I don't
Oh,
believe any of that. Number one,
Yeah,
and
the polls were wrong in 2016,
hey,
right?
and you know what? And at some point I'll tell you why. Yeah, I'll tell you why that's wrong.
all right.
I'll tell you why
Put that on
that's
the
wrong.
back burner.
Yeah, I'm going to put it on the back burner for a moment. Okay, but nevertheless, so I'm on
Eat it.
Facebook. I'm on. Hold on. Shh,
Okay,
shh,
okay.
shh. Hey, hey.
You
What
are
what I
revved up.
do. That's what I do to the kiddos once in a while. Hey, listen. So I'm on Facebook, and somebody posts this article from BuzzFeed News. And it says, this dad's thread on toxic masculinity has many parents clapping in appreciation. So that's what the headline is on the article. I'm going to read it again. This dad's thread on toxic masculinity, excuse me, has many parents clapping in appreciation. That's the article from BuzzFeed. And then here's the commentary above the article. I liked My Little Pony, Strawberry Shortcake, Shira, marketed for girls, cartoons as a little boy. I also got into my mom's makeup bag a few times, probably put on her shoes, and wanted my nails painted. I know my mom remembered more than I do. But yes, I think gender stuff, especially toxic masculinity, is hurting our society, not helping. There's more, and I'm not going to read more because he mentions his child's name and blah blah blah. So, but that last piece is the piece that I focused on. I said, okay, well, what do you see specifically? Because I'll be honest, um, I did those same things as a child. I have a sister that's 3 years younger than me, and I had cousins that I would see frequently. And all of my cousins were female cousins. My sister, obviously younger sister, female. She played with dolls. My parents' friends, my mom's friends, had children that were females. And so I was exposed to a lot of those same kind of things. And I did the same kind of things. I played with dolls. I played with strawberry shortcake. I pushed little baby strollers. I played house. I played with Barbies. I played with all those things as a child, as a boy, as pretty much all the boys that I played with in those circles did. I feel like that statement is not really number one, all that unique, doesn't set somebody apart in any specific way. I think that's a very common common behavior amongst boy children. This idea of toxic masculinity, I'm not sure what that means. So my question, to be quite honest and to be straightforward, to really get to the bottom line, is what exactly is toxic masculinity? What problems are we talking about specifically? I don't see it. And the side issue about not being able to have a conversation, that's a whole different thing. I'm going to forget about that for a moment because I'm not going to get any. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to press, and I could ask questions that nobody's going to want to talk about. But for the moment, I'm going to focus on this other piece of this, and I'm going to say that I want to ask specifically, what are we talking about when we talk about toxic masculinity? What does that mean? And what problem are we seeing in society that needs to be addressed specifically? I'm not seeing it.
Well,
Thank you,
you
Dana.
read the article,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So I think for somebody who would advocate for this idea that there's toxic masculinity, I think they would say, especially with that article, it showed the little boy, he liked the feminine thing of painting his nails. And then he went to school and and he came home in tears because of their rejection and ridicule. And so the idea was that, I think someone would say that toxic masculinity is this idea that men can't do things that are for women, even at a very young age, and how it's that this is a problem in our culture, that we don't let men be in touch with those feminine things, like, or even as a boy, that a boy wouldn't be allowed to be in touch with the feeling of being pretty and painted.
So it sounds like the problem is with other children, not with grown adults, because I remember being teased. I remember being ridiculed, not just as a child. I've been ridiculed and teased as an adult.
No.
Yeah, and documented.
Yeah.
And not for years documented. I can show you years of, if you want to call, I guess we can call it abuse. You want to call it abuse? Want to go extreme? Want to use some extreme language? I was abused. For years, I was abused.
You were in an abusive email thread.
I was in an abusive email, social media. I don't know
online bullying. No, you were online bullied.
Online bullied and just ridiculed for years and years and years. If I really wanted to go there and really wanted to do that. And that's the truth. That's not a joke. That's not something that's pretend. I can prove that. I can say that. I can say somebody actually made fun of me for years, ridiculed me for years. Not just as a child, but as an adult. Now, with that said, sometimes those things happen. I've done those kinds of things. I know most people have done those kinds of things, in the sense that sometimes you make fun of somebody. Sometimes it's not so nice, and sometimes it's just kind of playful banter. Sometimes you're just trying to have fun. It's not anything too serious. Sometimes people have these inside jokes, and yes, they're not all that comfortable. I've been on both sides of that stuff. And most people I know have too. I mean, most people I know have at some point have been on the side where they've made fun of somebody and they've had people make fun of them. I'm not sure I understand this whole big, huge problem of toxic masculinity. What does that mean? Because what that described sounded like pretty much the experience that you have as a child, every child.
Yeah, well, on one hand, they want you to click on the article, right? Somebody is trying to get you to go to their website so that their website can be profitable. So could it be just as simple as that? They're trying to make maybe what might be a nothing to something more. At the same time, they also are touching on the fact that our culture is experiencing changes in gender norms among some people. And I have a question. I think I've cut off Jeff twice now, but I do have a question. You have a lot of coming to tonight's episode, and I wonder if when you read that article, did you feel angry on behalf of that little boy who's being kind of pushed into this, like not just tolerated, but he's like encouraged to do these things that have traditionally belonged to the other gender. And yeah, basically, even with your especially with your background of having done all those things, but you weren't sent to school in a, girly looking outfit or something like that. So do you feel angry on behalf of what the boy is um,
Hello.
She broke up.
No, she broke up. She disintegrated.
I didn't hear that last part about her. Do you feel angry? Because
I
yeah,
think
I'm gonna challenge that statement when she's able to talk, or maybe I can challenge you. Maybe you know what she means.
what she means is that since this culture has norms, and we all know them, and we know people tend to bully people, as you were pointing out. As you pointed out, I think you may have drifted a little bit from where you started, but where you started off, you were pointing out it was children that bullied this child, not adults. And so, children are going to be mean sometimes, I think is what you were trying to say. And what Dana is pointing out is that if you know children are mean, so if I know children are mean and I know the cultural norms, and I send my child in with the opposite of the cultural norms, I'm kind of setting them up for bullying. And if you really strongly believe something, then I think Dana would say, okay, we're going to need to do that. We're going to need to put our child in that situation. But I think what she was saying is that when these things aren't actually that important, then you're kind of subjugating your child to unnecessary bullying.
Well, no, that's not what she said. I know what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. But her question to me, that's not what her question to me was.
Well, she's back.
So, Dana, can you ask your question again, please?
I just asked it, do you feel angry on behalf of that child? Maybe it could be in the sense that Jeff is talking about, or just this fact, or just the idea that that boy is going to be encouraged to do what have traditionally been thought of as more feminine things. Does that make you angry on behalf of that boy? I guess having been a boy.
Do you feel like I'm angry?
All right.
I guess just answer the question any way you want. I'm not trying to box you in, Ron.
No, I mean, honestly, do you feel like that's angry? Do you feel like the words that I use, the way that I expressed myself, do you feel like that's expressing anger? Do you feel like that's like some like severe hostility on the subject?
No, no. I would say that like I have feelings of anger on behalf of children sometimes when I read about, some these types of stories maybe, or um yeah. So
Um,
I mean, this is something that I have experienced. I just
so
wondered if being a male, if that touched you in a different way than just, I don't know.
so you walked away from what I said, right, with the understanding that I may be angry or upset about the boy.
Um, I
And how he was
well,
treated.
I guess just I only thought of that right now, actually. I just wondered if that was a possibility.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah, no.
I think
Did
for me, it might be similar to when I see I see young girls in like the dance thing, the dance world, right? The videos and the dance routines that little girls do, and the way parents dress
mhm,
their children and have
yeah.
them dance to Beyonce. That does make me angry sometimes. I feel frustrated and some feelings about that on behalf of the girls. I think,
Yeah.
oh, that
So,
stinks.
yeah. Did you read like what I said at all?
I did. So I engaged in, obviously, this. I engaged in the conversation too. I was mostly thinking about what I was saying. So I
Mhm.
can't quote you or anything like that.
Well, I think me, as far as what I was saying, I don't think had anything to do with like my feelings about children being exploited, if that's what you want to call it. So I think you're talking about children being exploited in certain ways, and I don't think I don't think I was talking about that. I
Okay.
could be I could be wrong. I mean, maybe it did come across that way. Is that kind of what you picked up on?
No, you know what? I just asked that as a question I just wondered about. Maybe,
Yeah.
but that doesn't seem relevant. So you were just, um, as far as the topic, um, I think the main frustration I got is, or the main thing I picked up on was just you wanted to engage more, and that wasn't being reciprocal. It wasn't
Well,
reciprocated.
that's definitely part of it, and as expected. Um, I didn't expect anything different. That's kind of why I took the approach that I did, because I have it well documented that I can ask a question in a very reasonable way. Kind of like I did toward the end of that exchange. I said, all joking aside, right? And I said, here's the things that I'd like to know. And I didn't get a response. And I wasn't expecting to get a response. I used some humor in that post, some exaggerated humor to drive home a point, which I'm quite sure it probably did, even if nobody likes to admit it. But I tried to drive home a point on what was actually being said, and the implications of what was being said. Because did you kind of hear my question in the beginning when I read the post headline, and then I read the, we'll call it two paragraphs or a couple sentences of the post, the commentary above the post? Did you hear that one piece that I said, this is the piece that for me I have the most questions about? I can read it again. I can read it again
Um,
if you need me to.
sure.
Okay.
By the
So,
way, I observe you coming down off of your anger, just having this conversation, Ron. Maybe this is therapeutic for you.
Coming down? like I'm having like a drug experience on it or something? That could be true. That is not like out of the question. I mean, people, they call it trauma bonding, if you want to give it like the technical term. People
Yeah.
that go through abuse, people that go through abuse like gaslighting and stuff like that. It's called trauma
Yeah.
bonding.
Okay.
So and often like gaslighting
blood
is
brothers.
often gaslighting looks like what we see on that post. Somebody that posts something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and then you try to ask questions and get clarity, and they go in circles and talk about absolutely nothing. So
Okay. Sorry,
anyway,
I'm bringing you off tangent there.
so anyway,
Off tangent. I mean, on tangent or whatever. All right.
so this was the piece that I had the most questions about. It says, but yes, I think the gender stuff, especially toxic masculinity, is hurting our society and not helping. Dana, did you hear that?
Yes.
Okay, so that was the piece that I had the question about. Again, in full disclosure, I was not expecting to have an answer to that question. Sometimes I engage in those kind of things because it can be confirmation that you continue to have or continue to try to have a conversation about these things and get a very strange, weird unwillingness with people. It's he's the one that made the statement, and for whatever reason he just can't engage, can't talk about it when asked questions about it. So I'm going to ask you. I'm going to see if you have anything to say about what I'm asking, if that's okay.
I gotta admit that if I was a listener, I don't know where we're going and I don't know what's happening.
Well,
now I don't mind hanging out with you. I do. But I know at first we were talking about you seemed very upset about being you seemed really upset about being unable to talk to anybody about anything. And I really thought we were going somewhere. And then now we're going down the toxic masculinity conversation. And to be honest, I don't know a lot about toxic masculinity.
well,
As a topic.
I'm pretty sure, Jeff, that I said I was going to side the conversation about not being able to have a conversation for another time, and that I was going to address the statement that he made. So let's talk about the toxic masculinity in society and what exactly does that mean?
Yeah. Well, so like I said before, I don't know exactly what somebody would say, but my take would, I think the ridicule coming down on a male for expressing feminine attributes or preferences or whatever, masculinity, forcing men to be a certain way, not accepting that they like to paint their nails or look pretty, because
so it's
that is the gendered preferences. I think that's part of it.
So what is hurting society, Dana? What's hurting society?
Probably the lack of, or the abundance of fatherless homes and broken homes. It's probably hurting society. I don't subscribe really to all of, I mean, from what I know of toxic masculinity, I don't think a real problem. Like, I think that, I commented, I don't have a problem with gender norms. I don't, I think that's just fine. I think it's just fine. I've told my son, male and female. Now I don't go. He can play doll the line at dressing like a princess, and I wouldn't him leave the house dressed like a princess. So I'm not one to for basic gender norms. I don't think they're a problem.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you then. Not asking if you agree with my approach to asking the question or trying to engage in the conversation, because I definitely don't expect you to agree with that. And I expect most people to kind of say, yeah, if you're trying to have a conversation, I probably wouldn't do that. I probably wouldn't post those things. I probably wouldn't say those things. But most people don't come to that conversation in the context that I do. And that is years and years and years of attempting to have conversations and not being able to. Years and years and years of banter and going back and forth and blah, blah, blah. And years and years and years of somebody knowing how I approach certain conversations, and sometimes trying to drive home a point. If they don't understand it at this point, that's a little weird to me, to be honest. Because I don't know how you couldn't understand where I'm coming from. Especially, not as I said, not somebody popping in to the conversation, but if you've been kind of in the circle that we've been in and done the things that we've done, there's got to be some level of understanding there and some ability to comprehend my question and what I'm saying and what I'm trying to say. Yes, no, maybe.
Yeah, sure. But back, but as far as the so with the toxic masculinity issue, though, do you feel like I am what I think some people view as a problem, like for that particular article?
Well, I think
like another friend of mine posted that people think it's a problem if there's a rejection of a boy doing that. And like I said, I've it's funny, my children have dealt with that with a friend of theirs who was painting his nails and wearing feminine colors, and they came to me like confused, like why kind of like, why are his parents letting him look like a girl? And I just said, forget. I just said, they probably think that's okay. Don't make fun of him, and that was how I handled that. So,
well, as a child, a few times I had my sister paint my nails. I had friends paint my nails. As it sounds like to me, from having conversations in workplace and friends and church and blah, 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 that people have had very similar experiences, that they've played with dolls and they've, painted their nails and they've played house and they've done all these things. And they've been made fun of sometimes. And I am trying to understand, and it sounds like you, from the statement that you made, probably in a nice way, but the statement that you made, it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're not really buying into that either.
Okay, so it's nuanced. I don't think kids should be mean. Kids shouldn't be mean to somebody.
You're not buying into, though, that there is this problem with toxic masculinity in our society, and that there's something in some behavior in our society that's hurting it? I mean, and if there is, what is it exactly? What is toxic masculinity? I'm still uncertain.
Ooh,
Even with
ooh,
what you said,
ooh, ooh.
I
Ooh,
understood what
ooh.
you said, but I got from
Me,
what you said that you're not buying
me,
into
me.
this.
Jeff is excited.
Hey, I got this thing called the internet, so I've been waiting for a long time to read you some people's definitions because why talk too much about something unless we can hear what people at least think the word means, right? So here comes some toxic masculinity from my favorite website, Wikipedia. Connell argues that a salient feature of hegemonic masculinity is the use of, quote, toxic, in quote, practices such as physical violence, which may serve to reinforce men's dominance over women in Western societies. Other scholars have used the term toxic masculinity to refer to stereotypically masculine gender roles that restrict the kinds of emotions allowed for boys and men to express, including social expectations that men seek to be dominant, the so-called alpha male, and limit their emotional range primarily to expressions of anger. And here's a nice one for you. Terry Coopers defines toxic masculinity as the constellation of, of socially regressive male traits that serve to foster domination, the de-evaluation of women, homophobia, and wanton violence.
That's a very lofty and eloquent way of saying a bunch of BS, to be honest. I mean,
Well,
that's,
here it says that
I
toxic
mean,
masculinity serves to outline.
please point to the actual problem.
I'll show you. I'll give you an example in a second, but to outline aspects of hegemonic masculinity that are socially destructive, such as misogyny, homophobia, greed, and violent domination. These traits are contrasted with more positive aspects of hegemonic masculinity, such as pride. These are the positive parts: pride in one's ability to win at sports, to maintain solidarity with friends, to seek to succeed at work, or to provide for one's family. So, Ron, the majority of people in jail are men, and it's often, the people that commit violent crimes are men. Isn't that toxic masculinity?
Um, I don't know. I mean, why is that? Because there really are no differences between
Perhaps
men
if
and
those
women,
boys were
right?
allowed to paint their nails when they were children, they would
Well,
have learned to express their other emotions. I'm sorry. I just it's such a the idea that all these things are connected is going to be a difficult one for those making that argument to succeed in making. But anyway,
well,
Well, it's very broad. Just like when we discussed the rape culture, it's so broad. So it really helps to be specific. Like, what exactly are you talking about in this instant? In this instance, with the story, it was about gendered norms of dressing and presenting oneself. They weren't talking about beating up other children.
that's a
well,
stereotypically masculine gender role, which is in the list
Beating up other children.
of toxic masculinity. Is that people require others to have stereotypical masculine gender roles, such as non-colored fingernails.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah. So yeah.
I'm struggling to see the problem though, and this idea that it's hurting society. That's the problem that because if it is, I just want to say, okay, well, where is it? What are you talking about specifically? And if it's not there, then maybe we can kind of turn our or shift our paradigm and say, well, maybe masculinity isn't toxic. Maybe there's some room to actually accept what that is.
Okay, well, do you think, so to be specific, do you think gendered clothing is a problem? The idea that boys can wear some things that are the same, but there are clothes that are just for girls and clothes that are just for boys. Do you think that's a problem?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I don't see that as a problem. I think it would. I I think it would be. I think if I walked into work tomorrow wearing a dress, I don't think anybody, including those that accept a transgender lifestyle or whatever lifestyle that they accept, I don't think anybody would go, yeah, that's normal. That's people just do that. Nobody would say that. Not at this point. And it's not because there's some problem in society. Do you see that as a, let's assume for a minute, let's assume for a minute that I did walk into work tomorrow with a dress on, or Jeff, that you did, and not a dress that kind of looked like a one-piece business suit. I'm talking about a dress, a very feminine dress, and you walked into work tomorrow and you wore that.
As opposed to a masculine dress.
I guess whatever that is. So a dress, right? And you walked into
Yes.
work, um, and being in the culture that we live in, where there's acceptance of many things, who would be saying, "Yeah, that's normal, nothing unusual. It's pretty standard."
Well,
And let me say,
ironically, Ron, can I just
let
say
me say,
something really funny and ironic?
I know we're nowhere near Halloween, so what did you
Well, I was going to say that if I were to do that tomorrow on Halloween, I could see it actually being a problem.
tomorrow? It would be a problem.
Yeah, because it's Halloween, it could be perceived as me making fun in our culture today. But um but moving on, it is coincidental that tomorrow's Halloween. But on a normal day, on a
What a
normal
great
day,
day.
if on a normal day, if I were to walk in with a dress, what's your question?
So on a normal day, if you walked in with a dress, right?
Mhm.
Is the reaction that you would receive a problem? Is that an issue? Is it an issue? Where are you of the mindset and of the expectation that if you did decide to wear a dress to work tomorrow, that should be perfectly acceptable and nobody should have any questions about that and there should be just acceptance?
I would say that I am of that mindset in the environment I work in, that has to be your mindset. You're supposed to be just sort of blind to all that stuff.
That is fascinating. Okay, that's fine.
Well, I
Well,
think Jeff is thinking forward too, because imagine if he did that, not tomorrow, but just on a Friday. If he wore a feminine dress to work and he was brought to the principal's office, because I imagine a lot of students would find that very funny. It would be a big deal, a low level big deal. I think though that I think you too, Ron, we logically know that if there was ever, if he wanted to do that, that he would actually probably have a legal case if the school told him, don't do that again.
Right.
In our climate, that's like a Supreme Court case, or not, maybe even not that. Maybe just he could probably win damages from his school district in the climate that we are in today. It's so it's an interesting place, and I think we all would admit that we know that women wearing dresses and men not wearing dresses, it's just our culture. This is our culture, our culture's gender norms. And it's kind of like a made up thing, right? But I think gender norms are useful and good, and they're not something that need to be changed in terms of, like, say, the dress thing. I think it's very helpful to know who a man is and who a woman is.
Okay.
And
well, no, let's
I think clothing helps with that.
Okay. No,
But
yeah. So let's go with what Jeff said, and Jeff, said that yes, he does believe that it would be a problem. So, Jeff, I mean, let's assume you did for a minute, and you were taken into the principal's office, as we'll call it, the administration, right, of the school, and they said, "Hey, by the way, you're quite a distraction today. Nobody understands. Let's say it's not on Halloween. There's no certain occasion or special occasion that this would, kind of make it acceptable or help make it acceptable. Let's just pretend it was on some random Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? Let's pretend.
I'm
And
pretending.
okay, and you did it, and you were brought into the principal's office, and they said, "Hey, this is quite a distraction," which I'm almost going to guarantee, as much as the environment that you say that you work in and would accept that, I'm almost going to guarantee it actually would be a problem for you.
Yeah. You mean
It,
that while words are used that say otherwise, in truth, it still would be a problem?
yeah, I think it would actually be problematic for you. I don't think it would go over well. I don't think people would just be like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. That's normal. That's acceptable."
As Dana said, I think it would be one of those things that she pointed out would, if challenged, become a legal issue in which, in the current climate, I think you would win. I don't see how you can put special gender role requirements on people at this day and age. Although could be wrong, but um, so even if it was a problem, Ron, ultimately, given what I hear in the media and what I hear about discrimination, uh, I from what I understand, you're discriminating against somebody if you require them to wear gender specific items.
Right,
yeah,
right.
but
So,
I'm imagining the response, though, of certain teachers I know, and I imagine that. I mean, it would be so interesting, right, if he did it. But I could see probably most of them would think, "What's wrong with you? Why are you doing that?" And they would just laugh. They would just laugh. And if Jeff responded, "I just want to feel pretty today," they would just laugh. You know, I doubt. I don't know if anyone would say, "Oh, that's lovely. I'm so proud of you, Jeff." They would just think, "What are you doing? This is a joke."
so
Right? So common sense, or I guess, I think there still is a common mindset of people don't think that that's a valid expression of one's beauty, right? They they still think Jeff is joking, and
well, even if they do laugh, which would probably be the majority of the reactions that he would get would be laughter. They would think he was joking, mostly, mostly because people know him in that environment. But if you were to put him in an environment where people did not know him at all, and he walked in that way, and here's the thing. Here's the thing. You know, it would be cool. You know, it would be kind of fun if we actually tested it, if we actually put Jeff in a dress, and we walked him into a public place or an environment where typically you're not going to see that kind of thing, the reactions that you would get from people in general are probably not going to go, oh yeah, that's normal, that's cool, that works.
Well,
And
were
here's
you
Top
were
secret.
you at his
Top secret.
bachelor's party?
Top secret.
Were you at his bachelor
Top
party?
secret.
Were you?
Top
um,
secret.
I guess not, because times have really changed. That's all I'm
Top
saying.
secret.
well,
So
okay.
times have changed.
I don't.
He has been paraded. If it's not
Whoa,
top secret,
whoa.
Jeff,
Top secret. It's probably
is
top
that a top
secret.
secret?
Probably.
Oh, are you serious? Well, it is a really good case in point, though, Jeff, to
Top secret.
to think how different times are. Okay. Anyway.
Well, no,
Okay.
I don't think though, I don't think that occasion represents what we're talking about. That's a false equivalent, because if you're talking about a bachelor party, and obviously Jeff doesn't want to go into details, and that's fine. But aside from his own bachelor party, let's just call it a bachelor party, which very common thing, right? And men are they dress up as women as a hoax or some fun. They're having fun, whatever. And people see that and they go, yeah, well, the bunch of guys are doing this because it's a bachelor party. They're having fun, blah, blah, blah.
Well,
I'm talking about walking into like a store or an appointment or DMV, and Jeff's wearing a dress. I don't think anybody's going to be like, yeah, that's normal. No, but nobody's going to do that. And is that reaction? Is that toxic masculinity? Is that wrong? Is it wrong for people to go, that's kind of odd. That's different. People just
My read on this is that would be that people are projecting masculine gender rules upon me.
yeah, well, and do you personally agree with that? I mean,
Well, a lot of
do
this is
you
exploring other people's ideas, but my personal beliefs are so far away from all of this. I almost don't know what point in talking about it. To me, it's relatively simple. Don't be mean to people, like my wife said earlier. You know, you teach your
mm-hmm,
children not to bully people,
right.
and that includes disabilities, uh, skin color, hair color, eye color, smelliness, wearing dresses and nail polish, all of it. Like it's just a general rule. And to then, as soon as someone does any one of those things, to then give it a special name, like the idea that people with disabilities being bullied is toxic normalness, you know, that's toxic, that normal people are picking on people that are not so normal. So this is toxic normalness. Giving it names and stuff to me is a little bit problematic. It's just being mean. Don't be mean to people. Some
Mm,
people are different, and some
yes.
people are more normal than others. And so that's the first thing we're dealing with. Giving it special categories, I wonder about. And then when it comes to all these gender roles, as my wife already mentioned, there's culture. Each culture creates its own little set of norms. So in this particular culture, most women have long hair and most men have short hair. Uh, Generally, as we talked about here, women are the one who paint their nails, and men are not. Generally, women are the one who can wear any clothing they want whatsoever, whereas men have some restrictions, like they can't wear dresses. And so it goes on and on. And so there's just cultural norms. And in my worldview, none of these things have that great of importance. Um, it's
Well,
almost like the who cares level what you wear.
No.
okay.
But I think
Well,
though you would say
No,
it is important.
hold on, Dana.
You'd
Wait,
say it
wait, wait,
is
wait.
important.
You're right that I need to put that in context. What I mean is that we don't need to be breaking all these cultural norms. There's no real importance in breaking the norms. I don't see some big revolution, need of a revolution breaking the norms. So what I'm trying to say is just fall in line with the norms. If I walked into a different culture and the men wore dresses and the women wore pants, I'd wear a dress. And if the men had long hair and the women had short hair, I'd probably have long hair. Does that make any sense? Like these
yeah.
things are so
Yes.
they're just cultural norms, and like what is going on here? What like so
Yes.
be nice to
Yeah.
people, and
Yes.
then why fight the cultural norms? They're just cultural norms.
Yes. Okay, Jeff, number
I do
one.
want to add, oh,
Hold on a second. I want you to add. Hold on. I really want you to add, but I want to say this. Jeff, why is it so freaking hard to just get a response like that? You answered you I don't want to say you didn't address the entire question because I have additional questions, but you had a response to my question. You presented a reasonable perspective. You presented some very good points. Why is it so difficult to do that? Why can't people just simply have a conversation? Why does it have to turn into these very we'll call them toxic, almost toxic conversations? And Dana, go ahead and add, but I'm just going to side note that for another time, Jeff, because I find that very, very interesting. I find it weird that you can
yeah.
just
Well, that is,
you can give an explanation, you can answer a question, you can bring up some good points and some good perspective, and yet it's so difficult to try to get anybody to do it. I'm confused, to be honest. Dana, I'm
Which
sorry.
gets back to the start of this conversation.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that is a good, I mean, Jeff and I were just talking about that idea before the show. And I think I could be more diligent in seeking on the show, but I think it is a thing that's hard for a lot of people to do. I know I avoid conflict. So there's the idea of conflict, right?
Yeah.
You're disagreeing with somebody, but that is another show. I just would want to add though to Jeff and I pretty much share the same perspective. Like we're cool with gender norms as long as they're not, I guess, sinful, right? But some of these more superficial things, like what people wear, what people don't wear, we don't have any problem applying those to ourselves, and also discouraging our children from breaking. But I'd like to add that, Jeff wouldn't tell our sons, oh, you can't cry or you can't express emotions other than anger. Like we talk about feelings and those types of things, and we encourage communication. And I think Jeff models communication. So we're not like stuck in this real, maybe stereotypical 50s paradigm where like the men won't they won't cry or anything like that. So it's not like you have to throw out, or I don't know. It's just I guess there's nuance, right? Just because you accept gender norms doesn't mean you have to. If men should be violent and not talk about their feelings, so people might take this too far or use toxic masculinity to encompass all these things. And if you violate one of their tenets, then you're being toxic. That's not cool. But yeah, and I guess right on gender norms. Do you feel like you're on the same page, Ron?
Well, before he goes, I gotta say I'm not. I make sure I teach my children to hate and have contempt for women. To make sure they're homophobic, greedy, violent, dominating, alpha male, that they can only have the emotional aspects of anger. Anger is the only thing that they can have. So that's where you and I disagree, Dana. It's very important to me
Yeah.
that
Okay.
my children are very much the
Angry.
toxic masculine child, the angry hating of women.
Jeff,
Well, oh, go ahead. Yes.
what you jokingly said though, what you said.
That is sarcasm for all of the
No.
people who one day take my words and take them out of context. Oh
Yes.
my gosh,
Well,
they're gonna take that clip there, Ron, and they're gonna play it. You know.
I
The
know.
deep state.
I know. I
Yeah.
know, but Jeff, what you just said though, in the sarcasm you used, should, for any reasonable person having this conversation, drive home a very, very important point. And that's the point that I am personally trying to make. And that's the point that I'm personally trying to, if you will, point out. And that is this idea that there's this problem in society with toxic masculinity. I don't think that that statement's true. I don't see that as being true personally. And that is because even the most macho guys that I've come across aren't guys that are going to tell their sons, you can't play with dolls and how dare you. Who's doing that? Who's doing that kind of stuff? I mean, yeah, if you go into school as a child, and I'm thinking about any of my three sons, right, going into school and wearing makeup and painting their nails. And I'm just picturing it for a moment and I'm going, yeah, you know what? I'm sorry. Um, that's just not going to go over well. I'm not worried about his physical safety. I don't think anything like that would happen, but I think that there would be plenty of ridicule, plenty of people like making fun of him. Which, if he really, really, truly felt like that's what he needed to do, he absolutely, without question, just had to wear a dress. He just had to because he's got this calling to. I don't I'm not seeing any of this, to be honest. I'm not seeing this like big drive in boys and society to, go against cultural norms and this big drive for men to paint their nails and to be who they are. I don't I'm confused by this. I don't see, and your sarcasm though, your sarcasm, yeah, I think helps in the very reason why I do some of the things that I do, like when in that post, in using words and using phrases, and using exaggerations. Sarcasm helps drive home a point, and your point for me is well taken. And I think it should be noted though that if you look around, I'm going to challenge anybody to point to me all these toxic men that are going around and making sure that their boys don't paint their nails ever or play with dolls, and you can't do that. And what are we talking about? What is this? What is
Well,
this? What is this problem in culture that nobody seems to be able to point to?
well, with the millions of listeners, you're inviting all the people who did have that occur. I mean, you can't deny that this occurs, that there are people who are experiencing all the things that you're saying.
Yeah.
So you're going to invite specific examples. So perhaps what you mean is because there's all kinds of bad examples in the world of bad things of any list of gross things that exist. So those things exist, Ron. There's a whole list of horrible things in this world. I
Jeff,
think what you mean to say, I
I
think that what you
know
mean
that.
to say is in the normal functioning homes, right? And like most of the time, you're saying that this is pretty much not a problem in
Well,
2018. I think is that what you're saying?
what I'm saying is that in most homes in 2018, if you want to put it that way, are probably going to line up with those of 2008, 2098, 2088, 2078, 2068, and go back, and we're going to go back to just how things are, and the reality that if a boy happens to be driven towards, and they absolutely have to, which I'm confused by again, but absolutely have to wear a dress, and they absolutely have to paint their nails. If that's the case, you're going to get a reaction from people that they're going to say, not very normal, because no matter how normal we want to say those things are, and no matter what buffer we want to put in for people to so that they can do those kind of things, nobody in mass is going to just, men aren't going to wake up tomorrow and just start painting their nails and wearing dresses and looking feminine. It's just not going to happen. And to but to say that recognizing that that's out of the ordinary, or that's extraordinary behavior, if we want to call it that way, right? Or however you want to spin it. If a boy comes in to work tomorrow, Jeff, or in my environment, or whatever environment that we're in, I'm sitting in DMV, we're in DMV, and there's hundreds of people sitting in this line, and this guy walks in, and he's wearing a dress, and his nails are painted, and clearly he's more masculine kind of guy, and he's wearing a dress, and he's got his nails painted, all that stuff. The reality is people are going to look at it and go, yeah, that's different. And to say that recognizing that that's different is toxic, that's the issue that we're running into. That's the problem. That's the thing that is basically, you're getting into that thought police arena. You're beginning to go, well, you're no longer allowed to recognize differences in cultures. You're no longer allowed to recognize when something doesn't fit in or when something does fit in. You're no longer, allowed to say, huh, there's 100 boys in this group and one of them comes in with a dress. You're just supposed to go, yeah, that's normal. You're not allowed to say that's unusual. You're not allowed to question it. You're not allowed to go, why is that? That to me is the issue, really. And that to me is problematic. I don't see why it seems like, from the point that individual is trying to drive home, that's the problem, and it goes into beyond just teasing. Goes into beyond just teasing, because teasing in cruelty in those situations, assuming that somebody did walk into an environment, a male with a dress on and painted nails, and people were just cruel to him. Most people that would say that's strange wouldn't accept him being abused or ridiculed to the point where it hurt him. Most people wouldn't be okay with somebody just being completely made fun of. Except, of course, if you want to go into some other stuff, and except if you're like a conservative, then people can make fun of you all they want. But most people, no matter on which side of the argument you're on, nobody's going to accept somebody walking in a room dressed as a female when they're a male and they're just ridiculed to the point of just abuse. Nobody's gonna there's gonna be a few individuals that are gonna go and play that role, and they're gonna be mean and cruel, and most people are gonna go, that's awful, man. That's like, yeah, we don't understand necessarily why that person wants to wear a dress or paint their nails, but that's just what they want to do. And beyond that, maybe they're a pretty cool person. Maybe, they're creative. Maybe they have great ideas. Maybe they're supportive in many ways. I'm having a hard time seeing this big problem of toxic masculinity, and that's the bottom line. That's the point I keep making, but over and over again, I just don't see where this is some big issue, and I could be wrong. I could be, but I'm still failing to get examples. I'm failing to have somebody point to me and show me where this big problem is.
I'm looking at a Pew Research thing to actually, maybe it'll be informative, Ron.
Okay. I'm listening.
Now, I take issue with their choice of words, but it says here 3/4 of the public, 76%, say it is somewhat or very good thing for parents to steer girls towards boy-oriented toys and activities. So 76% say it's good to steer their children towards those activities. And then a small share, was still a majority, 64% say they should encourage boys to play with toys and participate in activities usually associated with girls. So we're at 64% there. Now the choices though of wording there is kind of interesting because it.
Are they talking about soccer balls and making macaroni and cheese?
I'm not really sure. There's a lot of issues here. I think one in particular is you had to choose if it's a good thing to steer them towards versus a better question might be, are you neutral on the issue? Like, I don't see myself steering my children towards toys, if that makes sense.
Well, Jeff, I can't imagine. Oh, yeah. I can't imagine you, and I can't imagine anybody that I know, making fun of a boy that has their nails pointed or painted, excuse me, to the point of tears and ridicule. And I know that would.
That's where you stop. Once the tears start coming, that's when Ron stops the ridicule.
Yeah, I know exactly. I will go to the point of tears, but beyond that, that's when I stop.
Yes.
But I couldn't see you doing that. And most people I know, I couldn't see it. Now, admittedly, when children are younger, right, and they're in this group kind of think situation, and they're around people, a kid can be cruel, and people can be cruel, period. That's just a fact. But I don't really know too many people that are going to be like, yeah, that's cool, make fun of that guy because he paints his nails. I'm not, again, I'm struggling to see this big problem in
Well,
society.
but still, Ron, here this last number on it for males. So, what percent of men think that it is good to steer boys towards girls' toys? What's that number?
I
Uh,
I,
That's
I
a
don't
that's a
know.
that's a that's a
I'm
that's a
gonna
that's a that's a
22.
more that's a more specific number. So, what percent of
22.
men think it's
I'm gonna
good to
say
steer boys towards girls' toys?
No, 15.
oh whoa
15%.
oh what percent of men feel it's good to steer boys towards girls' toys? Is that what you're
Yes,
asking?
yes, yes.
I'm gonna lowball this one. I'm gonna say 10%.
Oh, 56%. I
Well,
thought
huh. I can't think of one time I've ever steered the boys to play with the girls' toys, but I let them.
So Jeff, what's the answer?
56.
Really? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I gave the wrong percentage. I was thinking something different.
The backwards.
Yes.
All right,
Sorry.
56. So that's a 40 for the number you were looking for. That is a 44, assuming that they didn't have a third choice. So
Yeah.
here's this. While 60% of Republicans say it is a good thing to encourage girls to engage in boy-oriented activities, only 47% say it's good to take a gender-neutral approach with boys. So the majority of Republicans say uh, no.
Is it? Yeah, but yeah, and here's the deal. I mean, we're getting into something that now we're getting into some relativity in this topic, which is okay. I mean, we can do that, but it does come down to individuals' preferences and individuals' opinions. If you're going to talk about acceptance
But
and
I'm gonna attack you though, Ron, and say that when I read this here, about half, 52% of Republicans say it's a very or somewhat bad thing for parents to steer young boys towards toward toys and activities typically associated with girls. That this is something that exists. You can't just dismiss it. It is something that's happening in homes, and in this case, uh, again, I take issue with the way they worded it because I feel like I take a neutral approach. I can't
mm-hmm.
recall I can't recall scolding my children when the boys are doing a stereotypical culturally feminine thing, and when the girls are doing a stereotypically culturally masculine thing. I don't recall. Danny, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't recall.
Well, yeah, I
Well, I
was
have
going to
three. I
say
have
they should be specific because when one of our sons was really into wearing the princess dresses, and I eventually said, "Hey, sorry, this might be one of those items. Is that on the list? Like wearing dresses, putting on makeup, because well, we don't really encourage our girls to wear makeup, but so I mean, we're really odd. But I mean, I don't know if it's on this list or are they talking about making food where we encourage both the boys and girls to make food. I'd like to
Toys
know
and
what they mean.
activities.
Yeah, so but painting your nails and activity,
I see.
is there really that high of a number of people who'd say that they would encourage their boy to do that? I'd like that kind of
Well, I take
specifics.
issue with the
So,
wording of the question, but I only bring it up to say not that this provides an answer for us, but it does say that there is some differing of opinions related to the topic, and that I don't think it can just be dismissed. And I do also want to note, Ron, as a circumstantial personal sort of anecdotal, whatever, that machismo, which exists within the Mexican culture, at least the culture that I encounter, it is a real thing. And we've even joked about it on this show about how I went to wash the dishes when I first met Dana, because in my home that was something you do as that's a nice thing you do, and in Dana's household that seemed to be something that you would be ridiculed for.
Okay. But is that a problem though? I mean, is that a big issue in society? Let's go with that. Let's go with the machismo culture, right? I mean, you've got here you are, you're walking in, you sit down to eat dinner, and then you're getting up and you're like cleaning dishes, and the you know the family, the Hispanics in the family are going, dude, like, well, I mean, I'm sure there's a number of choice words, right? But I mean, is it toxic? Is it like, is it hurting society because that's how they do? For me, Jeff, looks like in a lot of those homes, there's a pretty good balance of give and take. There's, in that Hispanic culture, if you will, if you want to even just bring it down to that, where there's the macho kind of man, he doesn't do housework, but the wife or the woman does. Is that is that toxic? I mean, is it like some big huge problem or in society, or is that just kind of how certain
So
places
I think this is
run?
a good moment in the conversation because we do end up, shall I say, chasing our tails around like things that are questionable from the get-go on their importance in the bigger picture. So what you'll
Yeah.
have is all kinds of stories. When you open the can of worms, as they say, right? You're going to have all kinds of examples and stories of these things occurring. But if you step back, forest for the trees kind of thing, like miss the forest for the trees, what are the real problems in society? And Dana brought it up about broken homes. Like the majority, a large majority of those in prison don't have a father in the home. And assuming that's more than just a correlation, but there's some causation there, that seems to be a real issue, something that we should chase our tails around about. That's something that is a serious, big deal problem. Whereas I think what you're getting at is, yeah, these things exist here and there, and there are going to be examples of extreme cases where this really could be a problem. But are these the things that are the real problems with our society today? Like,
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Is the problem really more of a lack of masculinity in the home, and a lack of male, broken homes with a lack of males and even females in the home, and roles that are observable for children,
how
as
about
a
this?
family?
Dana and hopefully God can have grace on us and this can continue. But Dana's often complimented on how her children are well behaved, right, Dana?
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah.
Now, uh, I've seen some children that are not well behaved, and the profession I have as these children get older, I've seen some older children that are way in need of help on the area of social emotional issues. And quite honestly, those are big deal things. And those statistically, behavioral issues lead towards negative outcomes when it comes to graduation and or incarceration down the road, which again, graduation is connected to incarceration. So you have a real problem here, real stuff. stuff that really needs to be talked about. So going back to Dana and behavior of children and these kind of things, you know, there are some things that are really worth talking about, um, being well behaved, knowing how to work with people you disagree with, and going back to what Dana talked about earlier, the broken
being able.
homes. All of this stuff is the stuff that you can directly tie with numbers to some of the ills of society. So,
Yes, I agree. I agree. And as noted, I mean, you take Dana, I'll take you as an example. Somebody that takes the role of a mother is pretty serious. I'm assuming that there are certain things that you do with your daughters that you don't do with your sons. There's certain things that you probably teach your daughters that you don't teach with your sons. Likewise, Jeff, probably the same kind of things happen. Correct? Yeah. I mean, is that toxic? Is that like highly abnormal? Is that a problem in society?
No, I think there can be healthy gender norms. I tell my 3-year-old that he's his sister's protector. And I think, I protect him too.
toxic
No,
masculinity.
Oh,
I
oh,
protect him too, but I
you're
was really
teaching them to
playing up
be the
that role.
Hulk.
Huh? But I did play up that and again, he calls me, he says, come protect me. So it's not like we just say women can never be protective, but I do
And he runs around with a sword and he kills
of that
everything.
with
Like,
him. And I think it was channeling his aggression.
yeah, so she keeps cutting it out. But he runs around with the sword. He kills everything. He
Yeah.
wants to he's just like he's only 3 and he's got all these stereotypical negative masculine behaviors. And Dana is directing them towards protecting her. Um, uh, uh, not encouraging him to
Kill her.
So
well, I
he's
mean that he should have other expressions of emotion. That I think there's something weird going on here where you're not really working with people as they are. I don't really know. I don't know that we have to deny all this stuff. I think
yes,
we certainly shouldn't kill people, shouldn't bully people, shouldn't be
right.
angry and evil and gross and all these other things. But anyway, I don't know what I'm saying.
Well, maybe it it was really good for me to hear of that study. And I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's where they broke down the percentage of people who actually were really into like the really far ideas and the far left ideas. And I think when they said it was something like 8% of people were really with that far left, very progressive. I think that encompassed these changing ideas of gender norms and all those things. 8% is still a good deal of people, but I thought, oh, like that seems really out. They seem like they get an outsized voice in the media. I read, and that was kind of comforting because I thought, oh, okay, this is not a big number of people who subscribe to all these ideas that are getting a lot of play and attention in the media. So maybe that's good to know. Like for some of these ideas about toxic masculinity, like how many people are really buying into going all the way with pushing this idea that all these gender norms and maleness are somehow toxic.
Yeah, no, that's I like that. That is encouraging. That's a yes, it's quite a large number, 8%. But at the end of the day, it is only 8%. But I could definitely see it. I could definitely see it growing if there aren't these kinds of conversations happening. Now, for an example, people don't like him because he does what he does, and there's always the opposition voice. But you guys are both familiar with who Rush Limbaugh is. Well, he calls the media in a lot of ways the drive-bys. To give you some context to that, drive-bys are the media they'll throw out information and they don't address it. They just kind of like they'll put a headline out and a lot of people just accept, okay, well, this is just how it is. This is just what it means. And for me, that that post was a lot like a drive-by kind of media situation where, Jeff, as I noted earlier, and in many times, and Dana, you too, throughout this conversation, you've articulated different points of view and have given examples and reasonable conversations. And again, I'm not going to steer the conversation into, again, why is it, well, I'm not going to try to drive home the point right now, why is it so hard to have a conversation, but I'm going to say that you both have given reasonable answers, and having the conversation, I think, helps with being able to put these things in perspective. And that's why I find these things so important, because I think if you just went off that article and you just went off the post and the commentary behind the article, it would seem though as though that there is this huge, well, not even huge, but it's a problem in society that's hurting. It's hurting us as a society. I'm going to read it again, if you don't mind, because I think it's important just to note really quick. I want to read it um, just so it's fresh. Okay, you still with me?
Yeah, we're listening.
Okay, so let me get to the section that is most relevant. And again, I don't mind I don't mind somebody making these statements at all. I don't mind somebody throwing out these ideas at all. And I don't mind people being passionate about this stuff on the other side of these arguments at all. And especially like this individual that I'm referring to in his post and the commentary. I don't mind that conversation, but I don't mind the conversation. What I do have an issue with is people throwing out information and then their unwillingness to address it. And case in point is this conversation. I mean, we had a conversation tonight, for me, pretty productive, pretty well rounded. There's a lot of things that we talked about. We didn't address everything, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think the three of us can walk away from saying that this statement, and I'm going to read the statement, but yes, this is the quote. But yes, I think gender stuff, especially toxic masculinity, is hurting our society, not helping. If I'm not mistaken, I would say that three of us, at least in this conversation, can somewhat walk away at this point and go, not really sure what that means. I'm failing to see any real examples of this idea that it's hurting society. And I didn't hear from you tonight, either one of you, that you said, yeah, this is the reason why it's hurting society. These are the things that are happening. I heard a little bit of the opposite. I heard, well, there are cultural norms, and yes, there are bad things that happen. There are unfortunate situations where people get teased and those kind of things. And they're always the extreme. Yes, there's a father out there, or an uncle, or a friend, or a brother that's really pushing home to, their sibling, their, nephew, their niece, whatever it is. You can't play with dolls. That's sissy stuff, and, or the kid, does play with something. I'll give an example. I'll give you a real life example for me. I was a teenager, and my girlfriend at the time, painted my nails. And I remember I was visiting my dad at the time, and my stepbrother and my dad, we were sitting somewhere, and we were decided that we were going to measure each other, like our height. And so we got up against the wall, and my dad's measuring us. For whatever reason, I didn't even pay attention to it, but my hand came out, and that was, oh, my nails are painted. And he kind of like chuckled. My dad chuckled, and my stepbrother said, oh, that's, he said, he made some comment, and but they left it at that. They left it at that. It was kind of a quick kind of thing, and they didn't, honestly, they didn't say anything. I never heard another word about it. My dad was, he wasn't I wouldn't say he was a macho man. He wasn't, particularly like, you know, masculine, but he was definitely a male. He was definitely, gravitated, he shotguns and blah blah blah. Did very male things, but he wasn't making fun of me. Neither was my stepbrother. My stepbrother's the same way. He's still kind of geared towards, he's a very masculine kind of man. He shoots guns, and he's into the military and blah blah blah. But he wouldn't treat his sons that way. He wouldn't make fun of them. He wouldn't, if there's somebody painted their nails because they have a girlfriend, or they were playing, I don't think, again, based on this conversation, and kind of how I started out in the beginning when I read that post, I'm I'm not seeing this big problem that's hurting society personally. And but I'm feeling the same way from you guys though too. I'm not sensing that you guys see this particular problem in society. But again, I correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I don't say things like you say, because just because I don't see it doesn't mean it's not occurring. Just because it's not in my circles doesn't mean it's not in others, in and so on and so on. So I don't know if I talk the same way as you. I can say in my own experience, I have seen what people might call toxic masculinity, and just the fact that most of the young ladies have long hair, and the boys have short hair, and the girls are the ones that wear dresses. Like, I can understand why some people might see. That's the problem with these terms, Ron, is that people might call that toxic masculinity. And so when you say you don't see it, these words people use include gender norms. There's all kinds of gender norms all around you.
Well, they include us. The examples I gave about our son and the dresses.
They're talking about
Someone would
things
say
that are
that's
happening
toxic.
all around us. So it's not so much that you don't see it happening. I think it's that you don't see. You did say this a second ago. You don't see it as a real serious problem.
Right.
So there might be gender roles existing,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I have a hard time myself, and this is where I do agree with you, seeing this as the big problem. And I work with humans in the adolescent stage of life, uh, and I find that they have problems, but it's not. I can't recall a single instance from working with over 1,000 people now, where this seems to be that this was the problem, this issue we're talking about.
Jeff, I think I hear something.
Is it your sleep disappearing?
Don't you hear some music coming?
Dana, I might hear some music coming, but you're going to be shocked at where it's coming from.
Oh. Oh. Well. Was that what you were looking for, Jeff?
Yeah, I think that's ending the show then, right? Can you keep it going?
Yeah. So
fade out.
Go ahead.
All right. Oh, don't forget to email us at at djronshow@gmail.com with all your amazing comments and questions. That's djronshow@gmail.com.